I often think about how my life might have been different if my parents hadn't divorced when I was 7. Back then, I was just Patricia Heaton, a regular kid living with my mom and dad in a cozy house they had bought together. Those early years were filled with simple happiness, family dinners, trips to the park on weekends, and bedtime stories from both my parents. Everything changed when they split up. Dad moved out but left us the house and made sure we were financially stable. He paid enough alimony that Mom didn't need to work, and she seemed fine with that. About a year later, Mom met Timothy. At first, he seemed nice. He'd bring candy when he visited and tried to make me laugh. They got married quickly, and soon after, my half-sister Ashley was born. That's when things began to shift. Timothy started giving me strange looks, like I didn't belong. He made little comments when Mom wasn't around, like, "Don't you miss your dad?" or "Wouldn't you rather live with him?" When I was 13, I overheard a conversation that changed everything. "I got that promotion at work," Timothy said quietly but firmly. "My salary's nearly doubled. You won't need to work or rely on Patricia's child support." "But that money helps," Mom replied. "It pays for a lot." "Come on, Nancy," Timothy insisted. "We both know Patricia would be better off with her dad. Plus, wouldn't it be nice to just focus on our family, on Ashley's?" The way Mom didn't even hesitate before agreeing is something I'll never forget. "You're right," she said. "I'll call Gregory tomorrow about taking Patricia." I stood in the hallway, frozen, my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The glass of water I'd gone to get was forgotten as I tried to process what I had just heard. My own mother was willing to send me away because she didn't need Dad's money anymore. Looking back now, I wonder if they ever realized how much that moment hurt me. I heard that conversation. Mom acted like she was doing me a favor when she told me I'd be moving in with Dad. "You'll have more opportunities there," she said, as if she wasn't just getting rid of me because I was no longer convenient. Dad welcomed me with open arms. He didn't ask any questions, just made me feel at home. He had set up a room for me in his apartment, painted it my favorite color, and filled the bookshelf with all the books I loved. That first night, he sat on the edge of my bed and said, "I'm sorry things turned out this way, kiddo, but I want you to know something. You'll always have a home with me. Always." Those words became my rock in the years that followed. While Mom was busy with her new family and barely called except for holidays, Dad was there for everything. He showed up for school plays, parent-teacher conferences, and even comforted me when I had my first heartbreak. He made sure I got into a good private school, encouraged my hobbies, and never made me feel like a burden. When it was time to apply for college, he helped me every night, reading essays and researching schools with me. I'll never forget the day my Princeton acceptance letter arrived. Dad's eyes filled with tears as he read it. "You did it, kiddo," he said, pulling me into a hug. "I always knew you would." College was expensive, but Dad never complained. "Your education is my priority," he'd say whenever I worried about the cost. Those 5 years flew by, and before I knew it, I graduated with honors and landed a job at a top consulting firm. I got a nice apartment downtown, not far from Dad's place. Every Monday, we had dinner together like we had since I was 13. We talked about my work, my projects, or just sat in comfortable silence watching old movies, like we used to when I was in high school. Everything felt perfect, until it wasn't. The diagnosis came out of nowhere. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 7 months, the doctor said, trying to sound hopeful. But Dad only made it 4. I was 29 when I lost him. Those last weeks were brutal. I took time off work to stay with Dad in the hospital. One night, near the end, he held my hand tightly and said, "You are the best thing in my life, Patricia. Never forget that." After he passed, I found out he had left everything to me, his beautiful apartment in the city and $800,000 in his accounts. But I couldn't think about the money. I just missed him so much. About a month after the funeral, my phone rang. I almost dropped it when I saw Mom's name on the screen. I hadn't heard from her in years. "Patricia," she said, her voice unsure, "I heard about your father." "I'm so sorry." "Thanks," I said quietly. There was a pause before she continued. "Timothy passed away recently, too. Heart attack." She hesitated again. "I've been thinking about you a lot." Maybe it was the grief, or maybe I wanted to believe people could change, but I agreed to meet her for coffee. That one coffee turned into regular visits. I met Ashley properly for the first time since she was a baby. She was 22 now, struggling to find direction, bouncing between job interviews. Mom was working as a cashier at a local supermarket, nothing like the life she had when she didn't need to work. I started visiting them more often, sometimes a few times a month. I'd tell them about my life, my weekend trips to different states, vacations in Europe, and I always brought them gifts. Designer clothes for Ashley, nice perfumes for Mom, little luxuries they couldn't afford. It felt good to share my success with them. Eventually, it became a habit. I couldn't visit Mom's place without bringing something. Even if it was just a quick stop for coffee, I felt guilty if I showed up empty-handed. The mall became my regular stop before any visit. Ashley especially loved the clothes I brought back from Europe. Her face would light up every time I pulled something out of my suitcase. "Oh my God, Jess. Is this really from that boutique in Bremen?" she'd squeal, holding up whatever designer piece I'd found for her. At first, I loved their reactions. Maybe I was trying to buy the affection I never got as a kid. I spent time picking out things I thought they'd love, a cashmere sweater for Mom, a leather handbag for Ashley. One day, I decided to ask what they actually wanted. "Oh, I couldn't possibly," Mom said, looking down at her coffee cup. "Maybe just some new towels from Target." Ashley was hesitant too. Maybe some drugstore makeup?" But things changed after that. Their requests started getting bigger and more frequent. Mom went from asking for towels to texting me full shopping lists. One text said, "Hey honey, when you're in Bern next month, could you pick up that Gucci bag we saw online? And Ashley really needs new winter clothes. Prada would be nice. Oh, and we're running low on groceries." I stared at my phone, my stomach turning. The lists kept coming, growing longer and more demanding. It wasn't just luxury items anymore. They started expecting me to pay for their basic expenses too. One evening, after getting yet another long list, I decided I'd had enough. I drove to their house, determined to talk things through. "Mom, Ashley, we need to talk about these requests," I said, sitting at their kitchen table. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "What do you mean, sweeties?" "The lists. The constant asking for things. It's getting out of hand," I explained. "Oh, come on," Ashley said, rolling her eyes. "It's not like you can't afford it. You're loaded." "That's not the point," I said, trying to stay calm. "Yes, I have money, but..." "But what?" Ashley interrupted. "You're just going to hoard it all while your family struggles? You've got that fancy apartment, you're always traveling, and you can't help your poor family? You're rich. Dad left you all that money, and you're being selfish." I felt my face get hot. "Selfish," I said. "That money came from the parent who actually wanted me. The one who didn't give me up when I became inconvenient." The room went silent. "It's my money," I said, standing up. "And I'll decide how to spend it." "Real nice, Jess," Ashley snapped. "Real nice way to treat your family." I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the next month, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no lists of demands. Part of me felt hurt, but another part of me felt relieved. Then, after a month of silence, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Patricia, honey, could you come over?" she asked. "I need to talk to you about something important." There was something in Mom's voice that made me worry. Despite our recent argument, I found myself driving to her house that afternoon. When I arrived, Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, looking quieter than usual. Ashley stood nearby, her face serious, a rare sight. "What's going on?" I asked, sitting down. Mom reached across the table and held my hand. "I've been to see a doctor, Patricia. It's my knee. They say I need surgery right away, a total knee replacement." My stomach dropped. "How serious is it?" "Very," she said, her voice shaky. "The doctor says if I don't get it done soon, I could end up disabled. I wouldn't be able to work anymore." I thought of Dad and how fast his health had declined after his diagnosis. I remembered how helpless I'd felt watching him suffer. "The thing is," Mom continued, "the best specialist for this surgery is in Oklahoma. They have a spot open, but..." She paused, glancing at Ashley, who stayed silent. The whole thing, surgery, hospital stay, rehabilitation, is going to cost $80,000. $70,000? I repeated, my voice rising in surprise. I know it's a lot, Mom said quickly. But Ashley will come with me to help during recovery. The whole treatment and rehab will take about a month. I sat there, overwhelmed. Memories of Dad's last months flooded back. Hospital hallways, machines beeping, the helpless feeling of not being able to stop his pain. I couldn't let something like that happen again. Not if I could do something about it. I'll help, I said, almost without thinking. But I can't give you the full amount at once. I can do half now, $40,000, and the rest when I get the hospital bill. Mom's face darkened. But I need all of it up front. The hospital? Mom, I interrupted gently. That's all I can do right now. I need to be smart about this. She started to argue, but Ashley put a hand on her shoulder, stopping her. They exchanged a glance I couldn't quite figure out. Then Mom's tone softened. Actually, she said, let me call the hospital. Maybe I can arrange to pay in 3 installments. She left the room with her phone, and I could hear her talking in the hallway. A few minutes later, she returned, looking relieved. They said it would be fine, she announced. We can pay half now and half after the surgery. The next few days were a blur of preparations. I transferred the first $40,000 to Mom's account. A week later, I helped them pack their bags and drove them to the airport. Mom and Ashley were off to Oklahoma for her surgery, or so I thought. A few days after they left, I was sitting in my home office reviewing some documents when my phone buzzed. The name that popped up made me smile. Shirley Sisha, my best friend since elementary school. We'd known each other since we were 6, but after I moved in with Dad, we mostly stayed in touch through social media. Lately, we've been meeting for coffee and catching up. Hey, Ratch, what's up? I answered. Jess, Shirley's voice sounded off. I need to ask you something weird. Did you know your mom and sister are in Europe? I laughed, thinking it had to be a joke. What? No, they're in Oklahoma. Mom's having knee surgery. Yeah, that's what I thought too, Shirley said, pausing. But my sister showed me these photos Ashley sent her. They're definitely not in Oklahoma. My phone buzzed with incoming messages. As each photo loaded, my stomach twisted. It felt like someone had punched me. There was Mom, looking perfectly fine, posing in front of the Trevi fountain. Ashley, taking selfies outside designer boutiques in Zurich. My Aunt Olivia and her daughter Helen lounging by a private pool at what looked like an expensive villa. Each photo was time-stamped with yesterday's date. There's more, Shirley said hesitantly. My sister said Ashley's been bragging about it. Apparently, your mom bought one-way tickets for herself, Ashley, your Aunt Olivia, and your cousin Helen. They rented some luxury villa for a month and have been shopping at high-end stores and eating at fancy restaurants. I stared at a photo of Mom, my supposedly surgery-bound mother, sipping wine at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Italian countryside. The $40,000 I'd given her for medical expenses was being blown on a European vacation. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, scrolling through those photos over and over. How could they do this? How could they lie so easily, taking advantage of my concern for Mom's health? They had used my memories of Dad's illness to manipulate me into giving them money. The next morning, I called Mom. My hands shook so much, I could barely hold the phone. How did the surgery go? I asked, forcing my voice to sound calm. Oh, it went great, Mom said cheerfully. The doctor said everything went perfectly. I'm already starting rehabilitation, Mom said casually. I gripped the edge of my desk so hard my knuckles turned white. The way she lied so easily made me feel sick. That's wonderful, I replied, my voice dripping with barely concealed anger. I'd love to talk to your doctor about the procedure. Could you put him on? There was a slight pause. Oh, he's very busy right now, sweetie. Besides, there's no need to bother him. Look, I need to go. They're calling me for physical therapy. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, a flood of memories hitting me. Mom giving me away at 13 because she didn't need Dad's money anymore. Mom only reaching out after Dad died and left me his estate. Mom sending me shopping lists, expecting me to fund her lifestyle. And now this, the ultimate betrayal. I decided to play along with her lies, calling her every day to check on her recovery. Each time, she had a new excuse ready. The doctor's in surgery right now, honey. He's at a conference today. He's seeing other patients. He's off duty until tomorrow. It was like watching a bad play where the actor keeps forgetting their lines and making things up on the spot. I even started keeping a list of her excuses, partly out of anger, partly because I couldn't believe how ridiculous they were getting. During one call, I said, "Mom, maybe we could do a video chat. I just want to see how you're doing and make sure you're comfortable in the hospital." I heard a rustling sound, probably her covering the phone while she checked with Ashley on what to say next. "Oh, sweetie, I look terrible right now, so swollen and bruised. Plus, the hospital Wi-Fi is awful. It keeps cutting out." As she spoke, I faintly heard Italian pop music in the background. "Really?" I pressed. "That's strange for a top medical facility." "Well, you know how these things are," she said quickly. "Listen, I need to go. Time for my physical therapy." The next time I called, I tried a different approach. "Mom, just send me the hospital bill directly. I'll wire the remaining $40,000 to their account." "No," she blurted out, too quickly, too forcefully. Then she softened her tone. "I mean, that's not necessary. Just send it to my account, and I'll handle everything with the hospital. They know me here." After that conversation, I knew something had to change. I stopped calling them, deciding to let them sweat a little. Sure enough, about a week later, Mom's number popped up on my phone. I watched it ring, imagining her panic as she realized the money might not be coming after all. Then came the text. "Patricia, the hospital is demanding payment immediately. They're threatening to send the bill to collections. Please, we need the money right away." I took my time responding, waiting several hours before typing back. "No problem. Just forward me the bill from the hospital, and I'll take care of it immediately." Silence. 4 days of it. I knew they were scrambling, trying to figure out their next move. Finally, an email appeared in my inbox with the subject line, "Urgent, hospital bill attached." I opened the attachment and almost laughed out loud. They hadn't even tried to make it believable. The letterhead was blurry, obviously copied from another document. The date on the bill was from 7 months ago. The hospital's address wasn't even in Oklahoma. It was in Florida. And the payment details? They listed Mom's personal bank account. I stared at their sad attempt at forgery, feeling both amused and deeply disappointed. I grabbed a stack of $200 bills I'd withdrawn earlier that week, fanning them out on my desk, and took a picture. "Got your bill," I wrote back, attaching the photo. "Sending you money." My finger hovered over the send button for a moment before I pressed it. Game on, Mom, I thought. Let's see what story you come up with next. Less than an hour later, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. "Patricia?" Mom's voice was high-pitched and panicked. "What's going on? Where's the rest of the money? We've been waiting." "Drop the act, Mom," I said coldly. "I know exactly where you are, and it's not in any hospital." "What are you talking about?" she stammered.
"You're in Switzerland," I said.
"Staying at a villa, shopping at designer stores, and eating at expensive restaurants with Ashley, Aunt Olivia, and Helen." The line went silent. I could almost hear her mind racing, trying to come up with a way to explain. "How did you?" she started. "Ashley sent photos to Shirley's sister, who showed them to Shirley, who sent them to me," I said. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I've seen everything, the villa, the shopping trips, all of it. You used Dad's death and my grief over not being able to save him to scam me out of money for a vacation." There was another pause, and then her tone changed. The fake concern was gone, replaced by defensive anger.
"Fine."
"Yes, we're in Switzerland," she snapped. "I knew you'd never give us money for a vacation. But why shouldn't we get to travel too? You're always going somewhere, Bremen, Liverpool, California. Meanwhile, Ashley and I can barely afford groceries. That's not fair." "Not fair?" My voice shook as I tried to keep my anger in check. "Not fair is being 13 years old and hearing your mother trade you away because she didn't need your father's money anymore. Not fair is having that same mother show up 17 years later, not because she misses you, but because your father died and left you money. We can talk about all that later, she said quickly, trying to redirect the conversation. Right now, we have a serious problem. We don't have money for tickets home, and we still need to pay for the villa rental. Everyone needs to get back to work. We can't lose our jobs. Please, Patricia, we need that other $40,000. In that moment, everything became clear.
She hadn't changed.
She was still the same woman who had given me away when I became inconvenient. Only now, she didn't want me. She wanted my money. That's your problem, not mine, I said flatly. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I went through every social media account, messaging app, and any other way they could contact me, and blocked them all. Mom, Ashley, and Olivia, everyone who had been part of the scheme. Sitting alone in my apartment, the one Dad had left me, I felt something shift inside. The last bit of hope I'd held onto, that my mother might actually care about me, finally faded. She didn't want a relationship with me. She wanted my money. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was my grandmother. I almost didn't answer, but Grandma had always been different from Mom.
She was honest, genuine.
Patricia, honey, she said, her voice worried.
Your mother called me.
She says she needs $220,000 urgently. I don't have that kind of money, but I thought maybe you could. Grandma, I said gently, let me tell you what really happened. I told Grandma everything, the fake surgery, the Italian vacation, the scam to get my money. As I went on, I could hear her sighs getting heavier with each detail. Oh, Patricia, she said when I finished. I'm so sorry. I had no idea Nancy would do something like this. Don't worry about them, Grandma, I said, trying to reassure her. They got themselves into this mess. They can get themselves out. It didn't take long to find out how they were managing. A few days later, Shirley called me. Have you seen what Ashley's doing on social media? She asked.
I haven't, I replied.
I blocked them everywhere. Shirley filled me in. She's running a fundraiser, claiming her wealthy sister abandoned them in Switzerland with no money to get home. She's making you out to be this heartless rich person who left her poor family stranded in a foreign country. I felt a familiar surge of anger, but this time, it was mixed with amusement. How's that working out for them?
I asked.
Well, Shirley said, they spent almost 3 weeks trying to raise money. They had to sell all the designer clothes and bags they bought. The villa owner was threatening to call the police because they couldn't pay the rent. And get this, they nearly lost their jobs because they stayed way longer than their approved vacation time. I shook my head, thinking about how their grand European adventure had completely backfired. A month later, Grandma called again with another update. They're finally back, she said. But, Patricia, it's a mess. Your Aunt Olivia isn't speaking to your mother anymore. Apparently, Nancy demanded Olivia help pay for the trip after everything fell apart. And Nancy and I had a terrible fight too, because I couldn't give her money for tickets home. She actually accused me of choosing you over her. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, Grandma, I said. Don't be, sweetheart. Sometimes people need to face the consequences of their actions. After we hung up, I walked to the window of my apartment, Dad's apartment, and looked out over the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. On my desk, a stack of travel brochures waited. I was planning my next trip, this time to Albania. The old me might have felt guilty about traveling while Mom and Ashley struggled. The old me might have invited them along, hoping once again to build the relationship I'd always wanted with them. But that version of me was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone who finally understood that some relationships aren't worth saving. Dad's last words to me in the hospital echoed in my mind. You are the best thing in my life, Patricia. Never forget that. I hadn't forgotten. And now I finally understood. I'd been lucky to have had one parent who truly loved me, who put me first, and who taught me to know my own worth. Mom and Ashley could keep their lies and manipulations. I had my father's love, his legacy, and most importantly, my self-respect. These days, my life is peaceful. I travel when I want, work hard at my job, and spend time with friends who value me for who I am, not for what I can do for them. Sometimes Grandma tells me bits of news about Mom and Ashley. They're still struggling, still acting like victims, still looking for their next target. But their drama doesn't affect me anymore.